Colleagues, it is exactly 3 p.m., which means that it is time for us to get rocking and rolling, and those who will join us will join us. Welcome again to part 2 of a really, really special series that we felt very humble in being able to hold. This is the mental health impacts of surviving COVID-19, the implications for school mental health systems, leaders, and providers. And if you don't work in school mental health systems, but you are a mental health provider, or you don't work in school mental health systems, but you are someone in the world who wants to listen and learn more about the experience of long haul and surviving COVID, you're in the right place. Everyone is welcome. I want to go over a couple different housekeeping things, and then we can rock and roll. Our couple housekeeping things is number 1, I want to do a huge underscore, bolded, highlighted appreciation for those of you who are here on a Monday of a week where there is many folks who have time off. It's also specifically programmed today because we're going to be talking about what are some of the implications for survivors of COVID-19 and folks who have long haul as we navigate what the dominant culture calls the holiday season. So both this week and potentially the holiday season of the winter. So if you're here, you're also being proactive and thoughtful and attuned so that you can listen in to potentially inform the way you show up for others, which is really incredible. If we haven't met yet, my name is Leora. My colleague to my left or right is Kelsey Schmitz. We're going to introduce ourselves in a second.
I don't think so.
All right,
nice
let's
job.
Let's rock and roll. Okay. Let's rock and roll. Cool. Again, a huge welcome. We're just seeing a lot of folks come in. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So happy to have you here. I'm Leora. This session is sponsored by the Pacific Southwest, with whom I work, and the Northwest, with whom Kelsey works, MHTTC, Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, and we are funded by SAMHSA. This is a long disclaimer that also needs updating because we have a new assistant secretary. So we will make sure that's updated when it's posted on our website. But nevertheless, the most important thing to hear is that the views and opinions of our panelists, of Kira and Carla and Derek and Mika and Jessica, are of theirs and theirs only. And so this is a time to listen into lived experience. And we're grateful for SAMHSA's funding to be able to host the session. Okay. I'm going to introduce ourselves really quick, and then I'm going to pass it to Kelsey to introduce themselves. If you're new to us, we are the bottom left-hand, the Pacific Southwest, are the bottom left-hand Region 9. We serve the U.S. Pacific Islands, Hawaii, California, Nevada, and Arizona mental health and school mental health workforce. And so our funded goal and mandate is to create learning spaces to help those who are both in the general mental health workforce and school mental health workforce feel skilled and efficacious and supported as you support those you serve. I'm going to toss it to Kelsey.
Thanks, Leora. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Schmitz, and I'm the School Mental Health Director for the Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, where we do all the similar things that Leora mentioned, only for our region, which is the upper left, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho.
Cool. All right, let's rock and roll. Cool. Okay, so any of us who are funded by SAMHSA, we are committed to creating programming that is strength-based, that is person-first, that's non-judgmental, that is consistent, that is healing-centered, that is inclusive, that's respectful, and that invites individuals to participate in their own journeys. And these are norms that we live into. I really welcome these norms to be guideposts for our learning today. We have 5 folks, and in Spanish, we have 5 folks who have different caminos in their own healing, have different ways of experiencing COVID, have different ways of experiencing long haul, and different ways of seeing how the field has supported or not supported those who've experienced long haul and COVID. And so it's our call to listen in and learn up. Okay. Taking a breath. So what might today feel like? We are opening and welcoming, so hopefully you all feel opened and welcomed. Welcome, welcome. Leora, Kelsey, all of us, hello. We're going to go a little bit into learning about part of our welcome is bridging community. So this is part 2. Some of you weren't part of part 1, and that's okay. We're going to do some learning bridges in a second on Mentimeter, just to get our brains and bodies reconnected with where we were in June. And if you weren't with us in June, what we learned in June. Then we'll talk a little bit about long haul COVID and framing and have some main session voices. We'll get to have breakout groups. We'll go through that in a second. That's a really special time to choose your own camino, your own learning journey, and go to each faculty member to be in a more personalized conversation with them based on what you're interested in. You go to more than one, and then we'll integrate and then we'll close. Okay, so seeing as this is part 2, we are checking in 6 months later. Our first session was June 25th. Yes, June 25th, 2021. I don't know about you, but both this 6 months has felt and like incredibly long and incredibly short, and a lot has happened. So we are here at this inflection point as a lot of our culture and country seems to shift away from COVID being the epicenter of a lot of our discourse. And there are still folks where it is still the epicenter of their identity, and there is still recovery and healing needed. And so this is part of us thinking about where are we 6 months later as a society and as school communities and as mental health communities, and where we need to go. Okay. So all that to say, we're here today to listen again, to think about not only how, from listening into Carla and Derek and Mika and Jessica and also Kira, what can we learn from their experiences that might open our empathy windows to the students and families and colleagues who might identify as long haulers or have family members who identify as long haulers. We might have students that are impacted because a caregiver is a long hauler, or we might have a colleague or a supervisor who is. We also still 6 months later are really naming what it can feel like to not be seen, what it can feel like to have an experience that isn't socially validated and that is disenfranchised. And so we are trying to come together today to really center the long hauler experience. We're also hoping to lift up even 1 or 2 structural ways that we can think about the work differently. But last and most importantly is to listen to long haulers' reflections and responses to support our practice. Okay, so this is the drum roll. We're hoping this experiment works. So Kelsey, keep the screen up for a second. I'm gonna ask Natalie to put the Mentimeter poll link in the chat box. And you can also, if you're super fancy, take your phone, click on camera, and then hover it in front of the QR code. And that will open you to hopefully question that should say 1 adjective that you love being called. So I'm going to ask Kelsey to take down the screen. I'm going to share mine. And Kelsey, you can maybe cue me when, aha, okay, good. Some of you are seeing it. So in the chat box, if you're just joining us, you can click on that Mentimeter link, and you will have the invitation to put 3 adjectives that you love being called. You could also go to menti.com right at the top and then use the code. If you hate all of this and you want to do what Shannon and Melissa are doing in the chat box, you can also just put your answers in the chat box too. But Mentimeter is a way to do it anonymously. And also it's a way for us to see who we all are in the room. So let's do a couple more. We have folks who are really compassionate. That makes sense for who is in the room right now. Thoughtful, kind, helpful. Yeah. So if you're in the chat box, I really welcome you to click on that Mentimeter link and you can play along with us in the Mentimeter. Okay. Intentional, enjoyable, heartfelt, dependable. These are really wonderful. A lot of you identify with being a rock star and a blessing. I'm into it. I'm into it. Okay, a couple more seconds. Okay, thanks. And Natalie, if you can just keep, if you can keep adding the link in the chat so folks can click on the link and then they can access the Mentimeter. So I'm going to close this voting. And we're going to go to the second question. So if you should be able to tell us what your familiarity with COVID is. You can kind of drag it. I'm familiar, I've had it. You can drag it to strongly agree. I've heard about it, but I don't know a lot about it. You can either say I disagree with that or I agree with that. Or if I'm not familiar at all with long haul, and you can strongly agree. So everyone should be seeing my screen so you can see the knowledge in the room. The knowledge in the room. Yeah, okay. So again, if you're just joining us, you can click on the link that Natalie has in the chat box, or you can see at the top of my screen, you can go to menti.com and then use the code and you can join us. Okay, so if you can see where your colleagues are at, we have a lot of folks who have heard about long haul but don't really know a lot about it, and are not really familiar. And then there are some of us who are like, yes, I've had it and I've got it. Cool, thanks for playing with us. Okay, we've got a couple more. So we're gonna go to the next one. If you attended our last session, what is one takeaway or learning that stayed with you? So it is totally okay. If you were not with us in June, this is when you get to sit back and relax and learn from your colleagues. If you were with us, including staff, if you were with us, please, 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 please enter what is one takeaway or learning that has stayed with you. We're seeing, of course, that there's grief in the room. There's grief in the room. Well, my voice might be a little bit lighthearted. We know that this is something that is really real for a lot of you. So the learnings from our June session, some of you are noting that each experience is different. So we heard from Carla and Derek and Mika and Jessica that each of their COVID experiences and each of their experiences with long haul was different. Thank you for supporting each other in the chat box. Yeah, so the main takeaway you got was a visual summary of the conversation. We'll show those in a little bit. That long haul is brutal and unpredictable. Brutal and unpredictable. Okay, let's get a couple more. For those of you who are just joining us, we are in a Mentimeter and we are calibrating learning. So you can either go to the link that Natalie has in the chat, or you can go to menti.com and you can use the code and join us. Let's just try and get a couple more. Listening to suffering in silence. Thank you, Natalie. Yep, so you can just click on that link and join us. Any other memories from that time in June? I know it was a long time ago. Yeah, if you weren't there, totally understand that. Okay, so we might need a little bit of a refresh. We're gonna go to a couple more, and this one you can participate in even if you weren't with us in June. So the question to all of you is, what are needs of your students or staff that have come up related to COVID-19 since August or September? So just in the last 3 months. What are needs of your students or staff that have come up related to COVID-19? Okay, folks need mental health breaks. Folks need ways to avoid burnout. One of those ways to avoid burnout is often structural witnessing. Mental health days. A lot of us are needing time to rest and recalibrate. Reconnecting. So both time breaking and also reconnecting. Vaccination info, emotional support, mental health needs, continued isolation, social distancing, and sadness as we turn into the holidays about disrupted traditions and family visits. Yeah, we're still in it. The need for rest and mental health days for support, and the need for support of understanding parents and students with school. Yeah, thank you. Managing isolation and anxiety. These are really powerful. Trauma training to feel safe and normal. We can talk about what that means. Managing isolation, anxiety, depression, and time to adjust. More education on facts versus rumors. Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm going to close this one and we'll move to the last one, I'm pretty sure, which is when you think about the upcoming holiday season, what do you imagine might come up for your students or staff related to COVID-19? When you think about the holiday season, what do you imagine might come up for your students or staff related to COVID-19? Okay, anxiety, worry, and fear, those are all really connected words. Yep. Anxiety is usually based on a question of what am I afraid of? Food scarcity. Is it safe? Right? Is it safe to connect? Is it safe to gather? Is it safe to be in person? Is it safe to be at home? When you think about the upcoming holiday season, okay, disjointed celebrations. None of my students are looking forward to the holidays. That's really important. Thank you for saying that. Right? We can say happy holidays, but this is helping us be clear about where we are. Grief, guilt, and loss, reminder of loss. Wearing a mask when no one else is. Who will I spend the holidays with? Stress, increased rates of COVID, safety concerns, reminder of loss, anxiety and sadness over loss of family and friends, loneliness and family tension and comfort. Yeah. Thank you. Stress, increased rates of COVID-19, financial limitations, and safety concerns. So I'm hoping that all of you, when you're watching this, you're also seeing a lot of mutuality in a shared experience. Yeah, when we were missing people who aren't here with us anymore. Yeah. Okay. I am going to close this and I'm going to stop the share. We'll come back to Minty in a second. Kelsey, if you want to bring up the slide. And I want to say in transition that one of the reasons we did that, it's not just about technology fancy schmancy, it's actually about having a visual that's anonymous to show us and surface us what we hold together and what we're holding together, even in this new community that we've been in for 19 minutes. Okay, I also welcome you along the way. If that felt overwhelming, please feel free to stretch, breathe, move your body, drink water, take a walk around the room, however you need in order to feel regulated. So one of your colleagues said in memory of from part 1 to part 2 that we created visual learning. Part of what we're trying to do as projects is create many, many ways that we can access our learning and sharing, especially in light of what long haulers and folks who are surviving COVID-19 say about the way that their learning and memory is feeling compressed or changed. So after our time together in June, we created these visuals that can help you capture the learning from what we listened to from Kira, Mika, Carla, Derek, and Jessica. And Natalie will drop that link in a second. I'm curious, before we transition and bring back our panelists, if as you look at this, what words stand out? You can kind of cascade them, put them into the chat box. What words stand out? So for me, when I'm looking at this and I see, oh, long haulers, they want to feel believed. There's a lack of trust. There's an experience of sanctuary trauma, which is what we discussed in June, of expecting to go to healthcare providers and actually getting re-traumatized by the kind of healthcare that they received versus the kind of care they wanted or expected to receive. Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of isolation. And also we're seeing an invitation from our faculty who are coming back to reconnect and to find ways to take care and find ways to be connected and be flexible and adapt. So we're going to do one more. This is the super, super, super small one. So Natalie will drop the link in the chat, but I'm just noting that these are all visuals that captured our learning in June and that bring us back together today. And I want to offer that these are ways for us to calibrate and to share out with our colleagues who may not understand what COVID or long haul is. I was just sharing with our panel that Last week, I was in a group of mental health providers and someone had never heard of what long haul was. So it's still an issue that we need to continue to name so that we can continue to educate. Yeah, Anne's putting a hero's journey that I want to be on, which is what one of our faculty members said. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to invite Derek and Mika and Kira and Jessica, and Carla's already on, to come on screen, and Stephen will help by spotlighting them. I want to just do a super, super warm welcome. If you were with us in June and you remember these beautiful peer teachers, feel free to drop a word of welcome or affirmation back in the chat box to help them feel celebrated and welcome into our room. You have all of their bios on the web page, so I'm not going to do a full introduction. What I am going to do is invite, let's see, we've got everyone. Boom, 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 Kira, great. And then Carla, I'm going to just add Carla. So I'm going to invite our guest faculty to do a go around with a quick introduction of who you are, what brings you to this conversation, and one way that you talk about long haul, or one way that you talk about surviving COVID-19. And we're going to go Mika, Kira, Carla, Jessica, Derek, and I'll put that in the chat box.
Thanks, Leora. I'm writing down what you said because part of my COVID brain is that to remember it, I need to do that. First, I just was so touched by what everybody shared. And it's so nice to be here with all of you. So I work in communications and I also work with young folks around storytelling and developing their own narratives. I am here because I had COVID that began in May of 2020 and lasted about 7 months. And the way in which I talk about long haul in terms of my personal experience is that it's something that transformed me, and I'm still making room in how to incorporate it into my life now and how I can acknowledge not only what has passed and how things have changed, but also the ways in which that I need to reflect and still heal from my experience.
Mika, welcome. Kira, Carla, Jessica, Derek.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Leora, for that great intro. Hi, welcome to all of you. It's nice to get to have the opportunity to reconnect with many of you from over the summer and kind of talk about where we are now. My name is Kira Maseth. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work in private practice, and I'm also leading a co-lead for the behavioral health strike team at the Washington State Department of Health. I also teach at Seattle University full-time. And one of the ways that I think about long haul has been reflected very, very strongly in my classroom experiences with students this fall, and as a clinician working with teenagers and adults. We didn't see a summer slump in behavioral health needs that we typically see. And so heading into this fall and where we are sort of in November, heading into this winter, I think context for the degree of struggle and why this fall might feel harder for many people than last fall. That's what I try to focus on with this, and providing sort of that the clinical piece that combines the perspective of education with it. So that's kind of my perspective today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. And I think we're going Carla, and I'm going to repeat the question I'll put in the chat again. Who you are, name who you are, what brings you to the room, and one way that you are talking about long haul or talking about COVID.
Yeah. So my name's Carla Monteroso. I work on the integration of salaried work in the country, and at the juxtaposition of the digital revolution and the demographic shift that we are currently in. In terms of one way that I am thinking about or talking about long haul right now is that we are at the beginning of understanding, but like we're not even at like the beginning of the end of the beginning. We're just like at the very, very beginning of understanding long haul. And often I think the way that it is talked about it is like, okay, there's COVID, and then there's this longer COVID that lasts for a longer time, and people are kind of tired and their brains are kind of funky. That doesn't really capture what's happening or what could possibly be repercussions in the future. And I think it's really important in order for folks to understand that the science around this is still so new. We discovered this was happening as, and there are, I think this was predictable as a result of post-viral reactions to other diseases. And on the other hand, we've been amazed at the different ways in which COVID works. And so I think the more that we can be in a learner stance around this and understanding that it is still evolving, the better off we're going to be.
Carla? Okay, I think we were going, now I've lost the order with all the chat. Derek, is it you? No, Jessica.
Yeah.
We're good then, Derek. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. Jessica Gonzalez. I actually work for the MHTTC network. So my colleagues, Leora and Kelsey, who are hosting this training today, along with their teams who are supporting logistics for this session, I work alongside them. And it's a pleasure to be a part of the MHTTC network and work as the school mental health coordinator there. But today I'm actually wearing a different hat. I will be talking about my own personal experience with COVID. I contracted COVID-19 very early in March 2020. So that's when, it was barely being known that it was in the United States. And it was very difficult for me to manage the trauma that I faced through that experience. I was hospitalized for about a week due to severe symptoms and complications, and also delay of them testing me for COVID and sending me home after being diagnosed with pneumonia because they didn't think that it was at all related to COVID at the time. And so experiencing that trauma, from that experience is something that I still try to manage even now. But when I talk about long haul COVID and I talk about the symptoms that I continue to manage even a year and a half later, I really focus on the impact that it's had on my mental health. That was really big for me. I think coming out of that experience and even just trying to get back to my normal self, which I've come to realize is not possible. I noticed how much it impacted my mental health and just how really difficult it is to manage those symptoms of COVID, of long haul COVID, when you face other hardships on top of that. So focusing on your recovery from COVID and then having to face other hardships. And specifically for me, when I talk about that, I'm talking about long haul COVID symptoms and then also the impact of grief and loss. So where those two meet and just how difficult it becomes to manage those symptoms of COVID long haul and as they blend in with what we face when we're experiencing grief and loss.
Hi, I'm Derek Canty. I'm a consultant. I work with many companies and organizations on strengthening and improving their team communication and culture. I'm a co-founder of a company called Peer Forward, which nonprofit that works nationally with high schools around the country to help high school students navigate the college application process and get into college and then succeed. What brings me to the conversation is really that I'm a father. I'm a Black male in my community, which really doesn't really acknowledge the full effects of COVID. Recently, I just lost a good friend that actually worked in the hospital as a radiology technician, wouldn't refuse to get the inoculation. He wouldn't get the vaccine, and We just lost him like 2 weeks ago, literally. And so that's why I'm here. Because, that brings me to like, how I talk about it in my journey is that it is a journey. Long haul is a journey. I can really understand what Jessica and my other teammates here are talking about just around recalibration. I don't know if there is no recalibration for me. I haven't recalibrated. I have to consistently fight not to go back to who I was and how I was, and continue to look at where I'm at today and what do I need today moving forward. So it was a really upfront and still is look at about my constant self-care. What do I need today moving forward in that way?
Thank you, Derek. I'm really also appreciative of Leslie, one of our colleagues in the ether, who wrote learning to make accommodations in my life and also tired of making accommodations in my life. And I think that is definitely a tension that all of you, we heard in June, hold of learning to navigate, and also exhaustion and grief from having to navigate constantly. I want to offer one question, and then we'll do a looking forward. But this is a present question. I just put it in the chat box to help with question memory, and not everyone has to answer it. Only if you call to it. The question is, how are you accessing healing and recovery, which are different things, from, I should say, through grief, trauma, and or stress. So how are you accessing healing and or recovery from or through grief, trauma, and stress? And Kira, that can either be for you personally or what you're offering to others as they come to you, or what you're learning. Just curious what comes up for folks, especially as we saw that there is out of the 69 people in this room, there's a lot that we're holding and witnessing. So open to anyone.
Honestly, I've made a ritual quite a bit of my grief. I have learned at this point in time that it is actually prohibitive for me in my long haul journey if I am not moving emotion through my body versus like bottling it up in my body. And I didn't mention this in my introduction, but I had 27 different people in my life get COVID and lost 2 over the course of the last year. And I have, my Dia de los Muertos altar essentially stays up year round right now. And I go and sit at it at very specific moments in the day or the week, and be with my ancestors, people who've become ancestors, because the feeling of, I just really feel like we are not acknowledging the level of trauma that we've all been through in the country. And my way of moving through that is by making sure I am acknowledging it on a day-to-day basis.
So for me, I'd like to share just a little bit more, a few more details about my experience before I share what's been helping me as I continue to heal and recover. Like I mentioned, experienced COVID and was hospitalized, and then was working on my recovery and realizing how much it had impacted my mental health, to the point where I started to take, anxiety medication for the first time in my life, because of the anxiety and the PTSD that I had from my COVID experience. And then, 6 months later, as I was feeling like I was finally getting to realize who my new self was, my brother, who was only 24, was murdered. He was shot and killed, and, in front of my parents' home. So very traumatic experience, and very unexpected loss, and very first time that I've lost someone that close to me. And so I feel that it was difficult for me to manage my long haul symptoms of fatigue, of not being able to focus, of, even the headaches. I was still getting headaches that, felt like my brain was going to explode. And dealing with all of that and dealing like I couldn't really relate to friends who hadn't experienced COVID before. And so kind of feeling isolated in that way. But then I have my brother who was killed, and now I'm experiencing grief, and for the first time in my life at that level, and just even more isolation, more feeling like I can't express myself to others and tell them, the darkness that I was in at the time in the early stages of my grief. And so what I did to help myself after several months, because initially I could not handle sharing my story, was seek out support groups. And, like I said, I work for the MHTTC network. I'm at the network coordinating office out of Stanford University, and they offer a ton of well-being and mental health workshops. And I saw that they were offering a support group, a grief writing support group. And I thought, you know what, let me just join this group and see if maybe I can relate to others and I can share about my experience and learn from others who are going through something similar. And it was really a blessing for me, and it really helped me. And now I literally just started my own Instagram account where I post, grief quotes and talk about my grief. And I don't think I would have been able to do that without seeking the support of others who have also had similar experiences. So I would say that for me, that's kind of what's been helping me. A lot of journaling, a lot of writing, a lot of talking to others who have also experienced similar losses and who have also experienced COVID, and just finding that comfort and validation in others.
I think there's time for about one more person, or two, depending.
I know, I say for me, like, recovering, healing and recovering, it was on multiple levels. I think physically, still healing, but just doing things that felt right for my body, especially things like yoga, and just trying to start to work out again a little bit more, getting me and my wife bought like a massage table, and we just took turns, right? So just things like that, right? That felt right. But I also think, I posted my picture in my hospital. I probably sought out the best of the worst, and it still was the worst picture, but I posted that one um, on a ventilator to people, and I wanted people in my network to know. And that's not about me, but like what this journey is about. And so a lot of people can inbox me, and there's a lot of conversations I still have with people ongoingly that from that post, from their ordeals or losing family members. I think at this time it's kind of like I needed to continue to reach out past myself, but not to a place where it would tax me. And one of the tough things that I'm still struggling with, I'm not gonna lie, is like this past, I had COVID. I was in the hospital 10 days not this summer, but past summer. It felt like life just kind of went back to 100 at this past May. And I, taking my daughter to college visits, everything, going back to work. I don't know, like it reached a peak for me, which I struggled with mentally as well. So I know that's also something tough for long haulers, where it's like, man, like life just hits back, and people expect you to get back in the game, do what you need to do, and keep pushing. But that was tough, and it still is tough.
Thank you. Okay. Any last pieces before we transition? I invite, if you feel open to it, to take a breath, however you want. Have some way for your body to just note the next paragraph. I'm also going to invite you, as you were listening, we just heard just 2 questions, but a lot of richness. So I'm going to just invite a quiet moment, if you'd like, in the chat box to offer one thing you heard that resonated, either an experience or a word or an idea, one thing you heard that resonated. And as we're doing that, I'm going to invite Kelsey to bring back up the deck. Yeah, so we have thank you for sharing your brave stories, resonance of loss. COVID takes time away. Yeah, that's really powerful. And Kelsey, you can move to the next one to just get us queued up. Great. The need to acknowledge the trauma. Yeah, or the need to acknowledge the grief, or the need to ask someone, what are you calling this thing? What language are you using about your experience? Yeah. Resonance with Jessica to recognize the need to literally feel. And people expect you to move on or be better, and you're not. Journaling, self-care, and community to cope with grief. Thank you. Beautiful. Just get a couple more. The importance to identify this trauma experience, to name it, and to name all the elements of it, right, Derek? Like not just the event, but then also the experiences and the effects of that event. I think sometimes we all talk about the importance of naming and identifying. I do too. And then I think about Jessica, what you're holding, and sometimes it's impossible to name because it's all compounded and compressed. Okay, thank you. So I know that some of you like to simmer and marinate. So if you have things that come up later, please feel free. Please feel free. I think Derek knows the story, but I had a student once in a workshop who was like, Miss, you're always trying to make us deep fry. Like, go quick. I was like, okay, we'll just marinate. Okay. Anyway, okay, colleagues, we're going to transition right now into our next chapter. So in June, we heard from a lot of you that you wanted to be in deeper conversation with faculty. And so we're opening we're opening it into 5 different caminos, 5 different learning choices. Led by each of our faculty. So I'm going to invite each faculty to just do a quick, like less than 30-second preview of what your room will cover. We'll start with Kira and go down, and then I'm going to guide us into how, I see you, Charles. We're going to guide you into how you can get there. So this is the little like commercial, 30-second commercial. Go ahead, Kira.
All right. I'm not selling anything though, except for community and conversation. So
hey,
that's good. I'm going to be talking about, the context of where we are in the pandemic in general, in how it influences school interactions, the behavioral health crisis that we are experiencing with our faculty and teachers and educators of all ages and across the sort of the spectrum of age and development for kids and youth in the country right now, and what we can do about that to support our own mental health in the context of this long experience in general. No one is immune from, right? There's no island that's safe from this. So that's what I'll be talking about, is kind of the scientific underpinnings around long haul.
Thank you, Karen. All right, Jessica.
Yeah, so in my breakout room, I'll be talking a little bit more about my experience with grief on top of COVID long haul, and also how we might support those who are experiencing the long haul symptoms of COVID, who have survived COVID, but also are living through, going through a journey of grief because of other forms of loss and grief in their lives. And so I'm nervous, but also excited to talk about that and help others who might be experiencing the same, and others who might be, supporting others who have gone through similar experiences, especially our youth.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. In room 3, we're going to be talking about workplace leadership considerations. And what that means is a lot of you are managing workplaces, whether you're principals, administrators, or supervisors, where long haul is still very much a part. COVID is still very much a part of those workplaces and their considerations. And we are going to talk about what you need to be aware of right now in our current state. And really talking through what considerations are helpful in the workplace so that people feel cared for and not just extracted from in a time of burnout.
Hi, I'm Derek. In room 4, we'll be talking about student and family partnerships, just as how as school leaders, administrators, supporters, we can really encourage students and families and really hear and listen about their experience, with long haul and COVID. But also really not just how do we do that, but how do we do it in a way to inform our policies and practices. I think that's just as critical. But yeah, definitely a welcome discussion.
All right, last but not least, Mika.
So in group 5, we are going to identify 5 crucial ways in which the COVID long haul experience can impact our sense of self and our identity, and ways in which we can try to support young people and our students with this.
All right. There's a lot of rich. You do not need to have fear of missing out. We have asked each one of our faculty to come up with 5 or 10 takeaways that are already in the deck, in the PowerPoint that will be posted and that were sent to you. You can also change rooms if you find that another room might be more of a need. So I see that you're going there. I want to give a couple ways that you can get there. So the first is that we are going to, when I say go, Stephen is going to open the rooms and you will actually have the opportunity to hover your mouse over the room that you want and then press join. That's the easiest way and the quickest way. You also can do, as some folks are putting already in the chat, you can let us know. That is a slower way, but we will try and get you there as quick as possible. It is 3:50. We're going to come back at 4:10. And I will check in to see if we need more time as well. How does that sound to folks? Okay, so Stephen, let's open the rooms. Our panelists will go to those rooms and you again can hover your mouse over the room and press join, and then you can get there. What were you saying, Mika?
I was just saying, I was so appreciative of people sharing their experiences and seeing faces. It was wonderful.
Oh, good. Okay, we're coming back shortly. Bernard, that is a very classic back to school picture you've got going on. I'm liking it a lot. And Anna, I think we met this summer. I feel like I recognize your face, so it's good to see you.
It's an ageless picture.
Ageless. It is ageless. Okay, welcome back. I'm gonna just start adding folks, and Stephen, if you can help to add spotlights for Kira. We're gonna add again. Okay, so Stephen will be on it. I hope that your 20 minutes with your breakout was so rich and also gave you a couple things to start thinking about how to be more attuned and attentive to the needs of folks who are surviving long haul and COVID now, then, and looking ahead. We're going to do a little bit of an integration exercise to help our brains and our bodies make meaning of what we just heard. And then we'll do one more question to our faculty, and then we'll close out. 3 ideas or important to know. And if you're a faculty and you mentioned something that you want to make sure you remember, like Carla was dropping research to prove long haul, please feel free to put that up. And we are going to compile all of this and send out. So this is a way for everyone to share out your learning. So what are 3 ideas or important to knows that came up in your room? Yeah. We're going to keep it into the Mentimeter. So we should start seeing your answers in the Mentimeter soon. Unless it's not working. And if it's not working, somebody can tell me. That would be really helpful too. 3 ideas. Okay, great. Empathy, meet students and families where they are. That I think maybe came from Derek's room. So out of your time in your breakout, What are 3 things? And if you can't go for 3, just go for 1. What do you want someone to know from your time? It's important to know that COVID long hauler symptoms are real and there are a lack of resources for long haulers. It is mission critical to care for ourselves, have a list of to-go things, of go-to, maybe to-go things that you could do for self-care. 1, meeting people where they are. 2, creating opportunities for youth to have a voice about what they need, okay? And 3, thanking those that continue to break barriers. I love that so much. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Yes, I'm not alone. There's hope, and it's okay to discuss fear and uncertainty. Some of you are adding in the chat box, self-regulating, time to care for ourselves, be aware for the children. Mission critical to support behavioral health for students and our own self-care, physically get up and have movement for learning, creating, and routine connection. Long haul COVID with compound experiences take time to heal, validating the reality and grief of the situation and sharing with others in supportive settings. That's really beautiful. I think that came from Jessica's room. Okay, listen to youth and utilize students' ideas, peer support, and acknowledging collective trauma. Those in supervisory positions need to be aware of these long hauler matters that have to be understood, heard, and believed. Absolutely. Okay. I just want to offer that if this is feeling like also a lot visually, we're going to provide everything on the webpage and in a follow-up email. So all you need to do is maybe let your eyes like fall on something that feels really resonant. We like caregivers need to pause for prevention. Okay, the limbic system has been highly active and can lead to exhaustion. Yes, an unregulated limbic system. I wonder which room that came from, Kira. Okay, thank you, thank you. We're going to close this and go to the next question, which is, what are 2 questions that still linger for you? And maybe that is something that didn't get fully discussed in your breakout room. Maybe it's something that you heard someone mention that you have curiosity about. Maybe they're self-reflective questions. How might I be a more trauma-informed supervisor for long haulers? What are 2 questions that still linger for you? These are also really helpful for us at the Pacific Southwest and Northwest to listen to so that we can create more programming for you. What do others do about brain fog? Yeah. Okay. What do others do about brain fog? Heard that question. When will it be safe again? Will parents and students agree on safety? That is a really, really powerful question. How do we find ways in which our individual and collective constructs of safety find some resonance, can meet at the same table? Are there any studies or evidence that prove long haul? We will make sure to provide those on our webpage. Are there resources or communities that I can refer to in navigating long haul? What policy changes are needed? How will long COVID be identified as a disability so that those affected can get needed services such as accommodations or assistive technology? How do I navigate differing ideas on vaccinations? These are big, big, big questions and good ones for us to sit with. I'm going to wait a couple more seconds to see if there are other questions that come up. I might encourage you to see if you can get a little reflective in your leadership. What can I or what might I do? How can I get this information to amazing agencies? How can we get this information to media? Yeah. The good news is we've got some very lovely visuals for you that you can download and send out. Okay. One last piece, and then we'll hear from back to our faculty. I want to end this with one appreciation. So one appreciation of yourself, a way that you showed up today, maybe differently, One appreciation for a faculty member who gave you a sense of witnessing or being seen, or a colleague. Everyone's sharing. Yeah, there's been a lot of safe vulnerability in this last not even 90 minutes. One appreciation for the learning. Got a couple more. There's 53 of us together, so we can flood, hopefully we can with warmth flood the appreciations. Yeah, appreciation for educated community, appreciation for naming what it feels to be minoritized and also affected by COVID. Thank you for everyone's vulnerability and supportive listening. Thank you for showing up, listening to experience and following up with action and the opportunities to discuss our experiences. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Carla. We'll make sure to add that to our website of the resources listed on our webpage. I appreciate knowing the intimate struggles of long haulers of COVID experiences helped me with my coworkers who struggle with this. Thank you. That's exactly what we hoped for our time. Thank you, Jessica, for your courage to share, inform, and facilitate. And thank you to the presenters and organizers for helping keep this at the forefront of our minds. Cosign, cosign. Okay. I'm going to stop the share, but you still have the Menti link, so I will not close this. You can keep the appreciations flowing. I'm going to bring us back to the room, and we're going to do one more go around before we do our closeout. And the go around to Mika and Carla, Derek, Jessica, and Kira is as we look ahead to the holiday season, however you identify those holidays. What is one piece of advice, one offering that maybe you've received that you want to give others? Or a piece of wisdom that you'd like to invite us into as we navigate the coming weeks? I'm going to put that question in the chat box, and whoever would like to go first.
I'd like to go first. I just want to say that, you know, in my breakout room, I had about 8 others share a little bit about their own experience with COVID and what brought them specifically to my breakout room. And so I learned that I think almost every single one of us has been either, has been touched by COVID in different ways. Either we've experienced COVID ourselves or have had others experience COVID and survive, or others who have experienced COVID and unfortunately their lives were lost. And so a lot of grief, a lot of trauma, a lot of trying to understand who we are at this point and how we move forward. And so I would say that as we enter the holiday season, being someone who has survived COVID and still managing the impacts of COVID and my mental health and the grief that I'm experiencing, I would suggest that you check in with others who continue to be impacted by their COVID experience, who continue to face, trauma from their experience, and, those who have lost others, either due to COVID or for other reasons. Check in with them, because although they might seem happy, back to normal, as others say, and okay, a lot may not be. I think that sometimes it's different. It's different for everyone, right? The level of vulnerability and what they'd like to share, depending on where they are in their journey. But I think even just a simple text to your friend, to your loved one, to your family member, to your colleague who has had these experiences, just saying you're thinking of them and that you're there and reminding them of that, I think is so important. And I've had some of those types of messages trickle in, these last couple of weeks from my own friends, and it's just meant so much. So I would encourage you all to just take a moment to do that.
I'll jump in. If I had a nickel for every time I talked about boundaries in my practice, I'd be a billionaire and could retire. I think that one of the things that is helpful for all of us to keep in mind over the holidays are healthy boundaries. How to, think about how hard it is to control your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So put limits around that and try not to control other people's, right? To recognize what's healthy for you and what's okay to say yes to, and when you're uncomfortable and need to say no. And give space to allow other people to set their boundaries as well too. So the establishment and maintenance of healthy boundaries, it's a different thing this year, and maybe it was last year too, and that's okay. And there's going to be different levels of comfort with stuff, and it is okay to say no. So healthy boundaries are, I think, where it is for me.
I think for me, it's going to be about appreciation and gratitude. No matter some of the effects I'm still suffering with, I'm so appreciative and I have so much gratitude for being alive. I have so much gratitude and appreciation for what I get to do and how I get to affect people with my heart and my mind. I have appreciation for everybody on the screen and on this call, that all the work that you do for other people's children. So for me, it's just going to be about appreciation and gratitude this holiday season. And me and my family are celebrating COVID-5. That we all got it at the same time, so I deemed us the COVID-5. My daughters didn't really like that name, but so what? We're gonna do a little reunion.
Set a visual for another Netflix show. Okay, any last pieces from Mika, Carla, and then we'll close out.
You can go, Mika, and then I can go.
Okay. I find around the holidays, a lot of stuff around comparative things can come up, and also reflection of where I was years before. So it's, for me, having the holidays meet me where I am at and not trying to do things that I used to do. And so creating new rituals that are manageable, but have richness to them.
I think the best thing that you could do for the long haulers in your life right now, and I say this noting, or I would say one of the things that you could do for the long haulers in your life right now, and just noting some of the language on like research for proving long haul, and the language around it. I think it's incredibly different when we ask our people, are there pieces of research that you have access to that can help me advocate for you? Then do you have research that proves that this is real, right? Like the World Health Organization named long haul COVID as a real condition in April of last year, or April or May, I can't remember, of last year. Like proving it's real is not what's on the table anymore. And so many of us are encountering doctors who are not doing their own research, who are not working alongside patients in a patient-led process, and then having to interact with systems and institutions in which the communication around this has been incredibly poor. So every time you say the word prove, it is going to hurt the long haulers in your life. And every time you say the word support, you, by reading some of the things that you have access to, it will help people feel like you're on their team instead of vetting whether or not you should be a team.
Carla, that's so powerful, especially to end on a question that gives us as long haul allies the words that we can ask you to show up for you in real ways. I hope that you all join me in saying thank you and gratitude to Mika, Kira, Derek, Jessica, Carla for showing up 6 months later, for guiding us through this teaching. A thank you to Kelsey, Ryan, and Jen and Natalie at the Northwest MHTTC. And a thank you to Stephen and Livia, Oriana, Angela, Yasmina, myself at the Pacific Southwest MHTTC. No one says anything about self-thanks. So anyway, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this crew. On behalf of the Pacific Southwest and Northwest, we are so grateful. We wish you a week that you feel grounded and seen, heard, and believed. and connected in any way you can, and that those who are not with you anymore, that they come to you through ritual or through other ways of affirming that their legacy lives through you. On that note, we are going to end the recording. We'll hang out for about 2 more minutes. And we're grateful to all of you. Be well, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you all.